Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be sculpting the Pink Panther. So I basically wanted to just do something simple and fun and quick, because I've been working on this tutorial for a minute about sculpting the female body, and we've been doing it using 2B, so hopefully that'll be coming to an end soon. Well, hopefully. That sounds a bit yeah, anyway, that will be coming to an end soon. We're just going to be doing the body and stuff like that soon. So, but all that being said, I just wanted to do something quick and fun and, you know, easy to do, is something that I can put out quickly for you guys. So we ended up with the Pink Panther. So what we're going to basically do with this thing is mostly just build a rough shape of it using primitives, you know, like the sphere and stuff like that, and then sculpting it up to look as close to it as I can as a base mesh. You can see what I'm doing with the head here. It was two spheres that I sculpted around and just manipulated to look roughly like the shape, and then we're just going to use the references that I found to try and make an approximation of it, if you want, in 3D, because he's not really a 3D character. And like, as you'll see at the end of this one, like the pose that I chose to do from the 2D image looks a little strange from some positions, but that's, like, again, mostly because it's not really a 3D character. But that being said, we can get kind of close to it, as you can see here, you know, just in 3D, and you create, I guess what we need to do is create poses or positions of this thing where it's recognizably the Pink Panther, and then the rest of it is kind of, you know, you're using your own artistic interpretation, if you want, of what that might look like in a 3D space. And I think I did pretty well with the head. I mean, from some positions he kind of looks like, I forget what the snake's called from the Jungle Book. Is it Khan? Something like that. But yeah, some positions he looks a little bit like that until we get moving with it, you know, like we add the ears and that makes it look a lot less like a snake. But again, what you're basically doing is building a base shape out of primitives, and then to the best of your ability, or what to you recognizably looks like something, i.e. the Pink Panther, you know. So like here, for example, I moved around it a little. The chin looked a little flat. I keep tapping the mic, sorry. The chin looked a little flat at the front, so I sort of rounded that off after masking it out. The ears were probably a tiny bit far away, so I had to reconnect some of that. And I gave him, in 3D, I gave him this little bottom lip, just to kind of make him feel a little bit more believable, I guess, or anthropomorphic, you know. There's small touches like that. So again, here's another good example of what we're basically doing. And I can't really put it any simpler than this, to anyone that's looking for a tutorial on how I did this. It's kind of all here. It really is just choosing some primitives and getting as close to the base shape as you possibly can, and then sculpting it up with hints of you know, 3D real world 3D anatomy, if you want. So a good example of this is in a little bit with the chest. I basically sculpted it up, you know, simple shapes like a cartoon here, and got it to a certain point, and then thought it looks a bit not clear enough that this is his chest and that there's a rotation in it. So I very subtly put a little bit of you know, some chest muscles there, and very subtly hint that the clavicles are there. Do you know what I mean? Just to give you an idea that there's a twist in the body. So it's things like that. I could have ignored that, but I kind of wanted it there to make it clear to anyone that's looking at it that there's a twist in the body, you know. So it's things like that is what I'm talking about. You need to fill in the gaps, if you want, because this character doesn't really, or doesn't usually exist in 3D. So we did the legs here. We basically just took a tube tool, pulled it out and started manipulating it to look a bit like the leg, and we'll mirror it later. But again, just because I liked the shape of it, I didn't want to go ahead and have to do another tube tool, so I just duplicated it and moved it up into a position, just to give me an idea of what it or where it might end up being. I do end up using this, but again, what I end up doing, which is something I don't usually do with the characters, is I sculpt it up to a point while it's in its like standing pose, while I can still mirror it, and then I'll mirror it and then cut it up, which you'll see in a little bit using the split tool, so that I can then pose it from there. So I wanted it to be consistent on both sides, which is difficult to do. And the other thing to think about is a character like this, where you can have spaghettified arms. It's difficult to tell or to get it to look right in 3D from the pose that we do. It's difficult to get it looking right without kind of mirroring it across, because one arm might be slightly longer, just to create that that chest touch there, for example. So yeah, I wanted to get it out to us. Here we go, I'm trimming it up here. I wanted to get it to a point where I was happy with the overall proportions of it, then mirror it and pose it from there. But overall, I'm happy with how it turned out. Mostly what we're doing at this point is just getting the primitives in, which is, you know, like I said at the start, an important step. So yeah, getting the primitives in, and then, you know, doing what we can from there to chop it up and give us something that's posable. It's almost like making a posable base mesh, but specifically using a Pink Panther shaped base mesh, you know. So yeah, we'll let this play out for a tick until we get to a point where we're posing it. But you know, we have seen this before in a few of my other videos. So we've seen this a few times as well. I'm basically creating a hierarchy system using the layers, so that everything moves from the root joint, which would be the hips, and then from there I can pose everything, and everything follows the other thing. So you have to drop, if you want the head to follow the neck, you have to drop the head into the neck group in the layers, and it will create a little group there, and everything above that neck joint will then be followed by that neck joint, like the head, for example. So we're going to start posing it here. I do toy around with a different pose, because I was struggling to get him to put his hand on his chest like it is in the reference image at the back. So I do toy around with a different pose, like the one where he's got his hand up, like it looks like he's flicking an invisible cigar, like, you know, yeah, nice work, kid, like that type of thing. But I move away from it. It just didn't feel right for the pose, and then we go back to fighting this right arm into position for this sort of like chest touch pose, where he's a bit like, huh, me? No, never, not me. Like a bit like that sort of pose. So here we go. I do try and put it in this position for a minute, and I quickly kind of decide this might be more hassle than it's worth. Moving on to another pose like this one, or the other cigar one, this one, and it just didn't feel right. So I was a bit like, you know, rocking a hard place here. I'd rather spend the time to get it touching his chest, so I can actually go for the pose that I wanted, the pose I had in mind when I sort of sculpted the head. And yeah, it didn't look terrible. I was just like, it didn't look right either, you know. So yeah, I move away from that, and I just start like brute forcing it into position. Moving the arm, like I grab the shoulder joint a little bit and move that way forward, which is what ends up pushing me into a place where I had to sculpt the chest forward a little bit and sort of sculpt that rotation in to make it clear. But yeah, I was happy with it overall, the pose and everything like that. So again, I'll leave this for now. I'll let you watch it, because it's, you know, just a few more minutes of me fighting around with it. But and I know that I think I must have cut that out. Yeah, I think when I was recording it, I realised this was going to take me a minute to try and brute force this into position, so I think I cut the recording off and just got on with it. Again, just tube tools here for the whiskers and things like that, and then I think we go on to we're going to go on to start merging the parts, final little tweaks to the pose, and then merging the parts. So I kind of, what I'll normally do with these is I'll fill in an area. If there's too big of a gap, I'll drop a sphere in there and just do a merge on the whole thing. You kind of want, I usually have dynamic topology on when I'm doing this type of thing, just so that I don't have to sort of fight the geometry. If it's got a gap or a weird thing in it, or a weird sort of kink in it, I can just lower the resolution, sculpt it out, and then bring the resolution back up and sort of work on the detail from there. Excuse me. But yeah, just little bits and bobs, you know, like the dynamic topology tool, for example, is a great tool for, you know, if you're not still 100% sure on the pose or what you want to do with it. It's just a great tool for that, because you can quickly grab large portions of the model, smooth them away, and then sort of work on the sculpt again. So yeah, here I merged the arm separately because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to connect with the hip. I wanted to keep it as a separate thing, and I didn't want it to accidentally merge with the hip, so I did kind of put a tiny bit of a space in there. The reason I did that, and the reason I don't really want to just let them merge in places like that, is because these things are eventually, and I've said it a few times, and I know it's probably getting old, they are eventually going to be 3D printed, and I've got a few models like this Pink Panther one that I think would just really work well as 3D prints, so I want to be conscious of those things while I'm sculpting this. And yeah, like overall I'm happy with how it came out, and I wanted to keep it simple for those types of reasons, you know, just something quick to do and something that I know would end up looking good if I printed it. So yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of the same here. We're going to merge the other arm, and then I think we'll smooth it out and sort of sculpt out a little bit, and then we'll do a merge on the whole thing, and at that point I'll start working on the chest, because at that point I realise it looks a bit funny, like you can't tell he's twisted as much from certain angles. So I'll let this play out again for a minute, and I'll jump back in when something interesting happens. There's not really an awful lot to say about the paint job either on this, so, you know, I might jump in when the painting starts to happen. So quickly, one thing I did do with the arm here is I bent it a little bit and made and sort of brought that spaghettification of the limbs out a little, because I think it just added to the sculpture. It added to the pose a little bit, and you know, really sold that he's one of those you know, tube type characters like old Mickey, you know, or some Hanna-Barbera stuff. So yeah. And here we go, just adding some form to sort of emphasize that twist in the body a little bit more. And then I think at that point we'll move on to painting it. Yeah, I do toy with adding like just flat discs to the eyes there to add to the cartoony aesthetic, but I decided to chop it out of the actual eyeball, because at that point, if you move around it in 3D, it will, as a 3D sculpt, or as a 3D print, it will look like the eyes are moving a little, because they've got that depth in them, and the shadows will move around the sort of cup in the eyeball. And yeah, we just added some eyelids quickly just to again sort of frame the eyes a little more, and now we're just going to paint it. The choosing the pink for this was I don't know, not tricky because I color picked it, but like again, while I'm painting, I'm looking at this like that pink doesn't look right. Looking back on it, I realized that it just really didn't have any lighting, but this is another one of those moments where I kind of shut down the recording and spent about 10 minutes just really looking for a pink that works with this sculpt. But yeah, overall I'm happy with it. It comes out a lot nicer and a lot brighter once it's lit. But I think if I was going to paint this as a 3D print, I'd probably brighten this pink up a little tiny bit. And yeah, here again I grab something on the brush there. Sorry, I forget what it's called. It's an alpha. So the alpha that I used on this, I wanted a scratchy edge to sort of like just suggest fur while I was painting it. So all of the areas where there's a brighter, you know, patch of fur, I just roughed the edges up a little bit, just to trick us a little bit into thinking that it's the fur, sorry. And then I just grabbed another image of a cartoony sort of wooden floor type texture, and made that into an alpha inside of Krita. And now we're just painting up a quick base. Again, there's not really an awful lot going on with the base, but you know, it's just something to stand on for now. And it doesn't look terrible. I mean, the main focus should be the actual sculpt anyway, the model. And the same here as well. Once we get to the point here where we're adding the sort of plate for the name, I just basically grabbed an image of the Pink Panther logo and flipped it and turned it into a black and white and used that as an alpha. And then painted it using like a height limiter on the brush. I masked it off and painted it with that. So, and we do a 3-point light setup, just a quick 3-point light setup to brighten it up a little bit and frame the character. And that's really kind of it, guys. This was just a quick fun one to sort of, you know, just kind of have a break from sculpting the tutorials, the sort of longer videos that I'm doing. And yeah, just to have a break from that and get away and do something fun. So yeah, thank you again for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, you can drop them in the comments. But yeah, I hope you liked the sculpt. It was, you know, fun to me to do. It was a nice little break. So yeah, if you did enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe. It's going to help me out loads, and I will catch you in the next one.